Hello everyone. I hope that you are doing well. This is the second video of our course about language testing, assessment and evaluation. Hopefully that you have watched the first video where we have had some information about assessment basics. We have had we talked about the learning objectives, the instructional strategies, and the assessment, how they are related, and how they are important if we align them together to work properly. Today we're going to have something very related and very important, and unfortunately I have skipped a video about the topic types of assessment because it's very important and crucial for some students now to know the difference between two types or famous types of the most famous types of assessment. Let's move on. You might know that we have three different types of assessment, which is the diagnostic, the formative, and the summative, or summative in American pronunciation. Today I'm going to devote this video to show the difference between the formative and the summative assessment. We might apply these assessments without knowing what they are and how we should apply them. So today we will study both of them separately, and we will know the differences and we know how to apply them. Summative assessment. I underline the word formative because it's what I'm going to talk about. Formative. Great. So we should first know the meaning of this word formative, because actually it comes from the word form. So we are going to form something. So formative, it's about forming what. Okay, we should focus on the meaning of formative to know what we will form. So formative means like determinative, developmental, decisive, constructive, creative, many things. But determinative, because you're going to determine your opinion, or actually your professional observation about the student's learning. It's developmental because it is supposed and intended to develop the teaching along with the learning processes. It's decisive because formative assessment helps you to decide what to do and what to not do. It's constructive. Of course, it's constructive because you are going to build upon what you've had, and you will construct and build upon the competence of the learners. It's not like you're going to build on zero base. So you will depend on what the learners know to start from that point. So the scratch in teaching and learning is what the learners know. For them to know more and can understand that. And this theory of or this method of like constructive teaching and learning it's to avoid the spoon-feeding method. It's creative. Formative assessment is creative because the teacher will create what it needs to be created or made. The activities, the context, the environment, the tools, everything that is needed to make the learning process successful. The goal of formative assessment is to monitor. What does monitor mean? Okay, monitor means to observe, to follow up on, and to regulate. To monitor the learning process. Why do teachers need to monitor the learning process? To observe the learner's performance, to follow up on and regulate the competence of the learners, to provide ongoing feedback. Ongoing means constant, continuing, current. Okay, it's like I need a feedback for now. What the students are learning, how they are performing, what they are doing, what they should be doing, what they should not be doing. Okay, everything is about the learner. So to provide ongoing feedback that can be used here by instructors, by the teachers, by the educators, by the tutors, to improve their teaching, to improve their instructional strategies and methodologies and activities. Okay, and this feedback can be used by students as well to improve their learning. If you just help your students to use this type of assessment to form a feedback or to get the feedback to improve themselves, then you have made like a great achievement, which is that you have created a reflective learner. A reflective learner is the learner who critically considers his performance or her performance. Those reflective learners, they can tell if this activity is good for them, if it's suitable, if it's useful, and then they can form a decision and they can decide whether, like for some students now, they say no, I don't like fill in the gaps. I like matching, or I like ordering. Like you give me like pictures, and then I figure out the story or the order of these pictures. So we have different types of learners. That's of course like we have visual and kinesthetic or other types of learners. So the learners themselves will reflect. They will know, they will figure out what is good for them. Okay? So the goal of formative assessment is to monitor, to observe the learning process, to provide ongoing, current, constant feedback that can be used by instructors, teachers, to improve the teaching, and by students, learners, to improve the learning. So the formative assessment is of a great value for both. Actually, we can integrate a new party, which is the faculty or the Ministry of Education. Okay, so anybody, the teacher, the learner, the faculty, an organization, the Ministry of Education, they can use and make use and utilize the feedback they get from the formative assessment to improve the teaching and learning processes. More specifically, formative assessments, 1. Help students identify their strengths and weaknesses and target areas that need work. Like target areas like what? For example, students, they will figure out after the assessment, after the formative assessment, they will figure out that they have some problems with spelling. So this is the target area. I'm going to work on my spelling, students speaking. The second thing, formative assessments help faculty recognize. We know that after the verb help, we use infinitive. So help faculty recognize, not help faculty recognizes. Okay, that's just a note. Help faculty recognize where students are struggling, and then the faculty will address these problems immediately. Why immediately? Because this is the right thing to be done. I am helping and I'm teaching and I'm aiming at making the students learn or helping the students to learn. Okay, that's something very good. But again, if we see something wrong, we cannot fix the year after. No, we need to fix it at the right very moment. Okay? Formative assessments are generally low stakes. Not to worry. Which means, what does low stakes mean? Low stakes means that these assessments, formative assessments, they have low value or no point value. The assessment, the formative assessment, is not graded. You don't give marks, or you give low marks, not big marks. For example, you give 5 out of 100. And you can still call it formative assessment. 5 out of 100, it's nothing. Or it's like you give it no mark. Why do you need to do it? And you don't give marks? Okay, I need to do it because I need to get the feedback. The teacher needs the feedback, and the students themselves, they need a feedback. A question: how is the teacher performing? How are the students performing? We get the answers when we use the formative assessment. Sorry. Okay. Examples of formative assessments in class and students too. We will see how to apply the formative assessment. Draw a concept map in class, inside the class, to represent their understanding of a topic. For example, now I am teaching the students a biology lesson. It's about the life cycle of the fly, or of the bee, or of the frog. And then I ask the students to work in groups, and then to draw a map showing the stages of the life cycle of that animal. Then, or you can ask them to work individually, or in pairs or groups of 3 or 4. It's up to you. It's about the number of the students. Another activity is to ask the students to submit 1 or 2 sentences identifying the main point of a lecture. Here is like you asking them to summarize. Okay? If they understand the gist, if they give you the gist, that means they understand the whole lecture. Because that's the point, that's the objective. I want them to understand this. Another activity is to ask the students to, sorry, I'm a bit sick, to turn in a research or early feedback. That's a very nice thing to do. Okay, so these are just examples of how to use or apply or conduct formative assessment. If we move on now, we will meet the other type of assessment, the summative assessment, which is underlined there. So the summative or summative. So summative, that's I think American, and summative is British. It's the same thing. What does summative mean? Summative means collective, cumulative. Okay, just like it's like total assessment, where you gather everything. That's the final assessment of a process or a course or a unit. So it's collective because you're going to collect something, and then you are going to do something with the thing that you have collected. Okay, let's know. The goal of the summative assessment is to evaluate what students learning. I'm sorry for this typo. It's students, the S plural and the apostrophe, the possessive apostrophe, to evaluate students learning. Evaluate. So you have to give value. You have to write down a number, a grade, a score, an expression of failing or passing. That's evaluation. Anything that is concerned with the total final assessment, which is going to be included in the overall score, that's summative assessment. For example, if you have first midterm, that's summative assessment, because the score the student's going to get at this exam is going to be included in his final score. The second midterm, that's summative assessment. Anything that you give grades for, it is summative, except one thing. We will know it later, and actually we have said it, but we'll point to it later on. So summative assessment is to evaluate students' learning at the end of an instructional unit, teaching unit, whether it's like first midterm, second midterm, the end of the course, academic year, semester, okay, by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. So it's up to you if you have like the benchmark is it's up to you if the pass score is 50, 65, 75. Teachers differ, or faculties differ from one faculty to another. Some say that the pass score is 50. Some say that the pass score is 65 or 75. Okay, so now students are going to pass or fail or fail according to that benchmark or that standard. Okay, for example, the standards like the IELTS, there's no passing or failing. But passing or failing is something not physical, because I need to get 4 out of 9 in IELTS because I want to travel and work or study. But in IELTS I get like 3. So between me and myself I failed. This is summative assessment. Okay? Because I cannot go or travel and study at that university because I didn't get 4. So the summative assessment is to evaluate, to give mark, to grade something. And we know what, like we said that the first midterm or the second midterm. So so summative assessments are often high stakes that we cannot compensate. We cannot, like, being generous and give the students the value of the summative assessment. For example, now in Libya, if a student at college gets 45 out of 100, the faculty gives him 5 marks to pass, because the pass score is 50. 5 marks. Sorry. I can't do this, but what if the student has missed an exam and the score for that exam is 15? Yes, we cannot give him 15 marks. That's summative assessment. Summative assessments are often high stakes. We give high marks and big marks, big value, big points, a lot of marks for that type of assessment. We said earlier that formative assessment is like low stakes. If there is any a formative assessment or a formative test, okay, formative, and I'm going to give 5 marks for that test, and a student didn't attend that day, he missed the test. And remember, this test is for 5 marks. So he didn't get 5 marks. Okay? At the end of the year or the semester or the course, he got 45 out of 100. I can give him now 5 marks. 5 marks is something we say nothing. So I considered him as if he attended and got the full mark for my formative test. But for the summative test, I cannot being that lenient the marks of the test, because the summative assessments are high stakes, which means that they have point value. The value of the summative assessment is something that the faculty cannot give the students. We said like, if it's more than 5 marks, then it's summative assessment, because here in Libya we give only 5 marks. So if it's more, that's summative. If it's less, that's formative. Like in Libyan, the concept in Libyan environment or context. Okay. Examples of summative assessments include a midterm exam. We said sometimes we have first midterm, second midterm, and then we have final. These three types of exams are summative, because for example, 25 marks for the first midterm, 25 marks for the second midterm, and then 50 marks for the final. The total is 100. And anything included in the total score is summative assessment. Unless it is low stake, 5 marks and less. A final project, a paper, a senior recital. Okay. Information from summative assessment can be used formatively. The information that we get from the final results at the end of the year can be used formatively, developmentally, constructively, decisively. Okay? When students or faculty use it to guide their efforts and activities in subsequent courses. So the next course, there's something to be fixed. That's what's meant by subsequent courses. I hope that I have made it clear for you the difference between formative and summative assessments. Please, if you have any question, just comment and I will happily answer your question if I know, and if I don't know, you will help me improve my knowledge, and I will Google it and I will read books to find the answer to your questions. Thank you so much. Enjoy your time.